We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
Good afternoon, New Year's Day 2013. Welcome to Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live. I'm your host, Joshua Lane, and thank you for listening to my wellness program. We come live every Tuesday from LA Talk Live, answering your wellness questions. And my guest this segment is Dr. Helen Turnbull. Dr. Turnbull is a practiced organizational development consultant. Dr. Turnbull, as CEO of Human Facets, is a global inclusion and diversity specialist. Dr. Turnbull specializes on the subject of internalized oppression across cultures and understands what it takes to create an inclusive environment. Dr. Turnbull's experience includes working with clients such as Texas Instruments, Raytheon, J.P. Morgan Chase, Motorola, Hewlett-Packard, AT&T, Lucent Technologies, IBM, and Citigroup Europe. Dr. Turnbull has made major contributions in assisting Texas Instruments to win the Catalyst Award, and was instrumental in developing and helping both J.P. Morgan Chase and Citigroup Europe win the prestigious Opportunity Now Awards and Business in the Community Awards. Commonwealth Bank of Australia also won the 2012 Catalyst Award, attributing the win in part to Cognizant, an unconscious bias tool developed by Dr. Helen Turnbull. Helen Turnbull has developed 2 online assessment tools which provide clients with behavioral metrics for individuals and organizations. Dr. Helen Turnbull is the author of an allegorical tale, Village of Illusions, also Roadmap to Success, with Deepak Chopra and Ken Blanchard, where she has a featured chapter and another article called Blind Spots, a conversation with Dr. Turnbull about unconscious bias. Dr. Helen Turnbull, thank you for being a guest on Here's to Your Health, and could you please explain your work in the workplace to us?
Hello, Josh. Happy New Year.
Helen, Happy New Year. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you for inviting me to be on the show today. I'm very happy to join you.
Thank you.
As I heard in the introduction, I work mainly in the area of global inclusion and diversity with a particular focus on unconscious bias. Effectively, what I'm trying to do is to help people to look at their blind spots. We all have blind spots, and when I started doing this work, probably around late 1980s, we were really looking at finding people who said things that were inappropriate and saying, that's evidence that you have bias. Whereas today, I think we've evolved to the point where we're really accepting that all of us have biases, and we're not looking for blame. We're looking for acceptance that each of us has bias, and that no one gets to be a phenomenological exception, not even me. So that we have to just become more cognizant and more mindful of our blind spots in order to catch them and to catch the judgments that we make about other people, so that we can make a more conscious decision about how we're going to treat people and what we're going to say.
Well, that seems like an important concept. It does seem like, as a concept now, that I would say most businesses and governmental agencies recognize as being important. But when you first were a student of this subject, I'm assuming that you were one of the first people to write on this subject?
I'm not would be one of the first people to write on the subject. In fact, I started doing this work when I came to the United States. I worked in human resources with BBC Television in the UK, and I don't think I ever thought about diversity or people's differences and why they mattered. But when I came to this country, I began to look at the issues more thoughtfully. And my PhD dissertation is on the internalized oppression across differences. So looking at what being different in society does to us and how we take on and internalize the negative messages. I think there are many people who have written on this subject, and I probably would consider myself as a thought leader in the field and certainly one of the top people, but I'm not sure that I was the first. In fact, I would say that Roosevelt Thomas, when he was published in the Harvard Business Review on his article with affirmative action, that he was one of the first people that I remember getting major amounts of attention for the conversation about differences. Also, Taylor Cox was another writer.
I see. So what you have done is you have taken these earlier thinkers and taken the work and the idea of the work and the importance of the work, and you've adapted it for, I saw from your bio, you've worked with major corporations around the globe.
Yes. In fact, when I started my I was told that what you need to do is think of yourself as joining a conversation of scholars and finding your unique place in that conversation. And I think that that's what I've done with the work, is to really say this is something meaningful that needs to be done, and that we all have a major contribution to make to it, and I would like to do that. So I've had the privilege. I mean, my background is in organizational behavior, and I come at the work very much from what I would call a systems approach, is looking at the fact that large-scale systems like major corporations are all living systems and are open to feedback and are willing to change and evolve and grow, and that valuing people's differences is a large part of their business imperative today. And so I have had the privilege of working not just here in the United States but around the world doing this work, which obviously widens my own perspective. You can probably tell from my accent, and I'm sure you said it in my bio that I'm originally from Scotland. But being European does influence my thinking, and traveling to do this work allows me to see how differences play out for all of us in so many ways, and at the same time, so many similarities.
What are some of the problems that you run across in the corporations where you are employed, without mentioning the name of the employer, but could you mention just an example of how you're able to assist them to run a more efficient organization?
Yes. I mean, I think that corporations, the ones that I'm working with, are coming at this issue wanting to get more women, more ethnic minorities or people of color into senior levels of the organization, so that there's more equality in the system. Because in actual fact, today what's happening is, as long as we've been doing this work, we still haven't really broken these glass ceilings. We still don't really see lots of women and people of color in senior positions. And that's, I think, where the unconscious biases come in. That why is that? Because if our left brain intellectually accepts that, of course, we're all equal, and of course, as long as someone's competent and can do the job, then they should get hired for the job. But it isn't really happening. And so corporations spend a lot of time and money hiring people like myself to come in and to help look at a change management process that leverages that conversation, so that senior leaders and people in the organization can begin to make opportunities for women and ethnic minorities or people of color to be seen as equal to the white males who have predominantly run our corporations.
And so part of your work is to help these senior management and middle management, and I guess the board of directors, recognize that there's a need to move in a new direction?
Yes. I mean, part of my work is to help the key people in the organization to have a platform for having these conversations that is non-threatening. I think in the past, when I started doing this work, some of this work, Josh, was pretty gut-wrenching. It was very difficult to do because what effectively was happening was we were using the stories of women and people of color to educate and make aware the predominantly white men in the organization. To some extent, I believe it worked, but to another degree, I think it made all of us tense. So what's happening today is that unconscious bias is something we all have, regardless of who you are. And if we can begin to see not just how it diversity with women or people of color, but how it plays out in the business world. If the brain distorts the message basically, and we socially construct a story, so that when we think we're seeing something as reality, it's not necessarily reality, it's our version of reality. So when people say to me, we have a meritocracy here. We only hire the best people. And my question to them is, well, what does your version of meritocracy sound like or look like? And who is a good fit for your organization? Because sometimes somebody not being a good fit is really code for they don't quite fit in here because they're not one of us. Because our tendency as human beings is to lean towards what I call affinity bias. We actually do prefer, and are more comfortable with affinity or similarity. And it takes a little bit of work to be around people who are significantly different to us, who think differently. I was thinking last night about, New Year, and I've lived in America since 1985. It's actually since 1980. But I'm originally from Scotland, and Scottish people have very deep cultural roots around how we celebrate New Year. And one of the customs we have is that we have to clean our house on New Year's Eve. Everything has to be clean. You empty the trash just before midnight, etc., etc. And every year I tell myself, that's stupid, I'm not going to do it. But every year, just before midnight, I rush around doing it because my cultural roots are so deeply embedded that I can't not do it. So all of us got cultural messages growing up, and it's very hard for us to let go of them. And when they're not always playing out consciously. Geert Hofstede, who's a Dutch anthropologist, said that it is not just improbable, but impossible for us to think of other people's culture as more superior to ours.
Uh-huh.
So when you carry that as an unconscious bias, that my culture is better than yours, then that plays out in some way in the way in which we're making decisions about each other.
Well, yeah, that's actually very interesting. For those of you just tuning in to Here's to Your Health today on LA Talk Live, we're speaking with Dr. Helen Turnbull, who is an organizational development consultant. And Dr. Turnbull is the CEO of Human Facets, a global inclusion and diversity specialist. Helen, if I could just make a little joke at this very moment, based on your last statement. An Englishman and a Frenchman are speaking, and the Englishman says he prays to God, and the Frenchman says he prays to God, and that they are the same. And the Englishman said, well, no, I pray to God in English. That's an very old joke. It's kind of apropos here.
Yes. Well, and it's right. I mean, the issue is our cultural frame of reference, and we don't even realize quite often that it's a backdrop to our decision-making process. And so what I want to be able to do is to help people to see that these differences matter, that these differences are there, and that they're impacting all of us. And, I don't know. What I strive for today is to help my clients create an inclusive work environment where everyone is included, and everyone is included in a way that they don't have to give up huge pieces of themselves in order to be accepted. But I also struggle with the idea that can we ever really reach what I would call diversity nirvana or a truly inclusive workplace or society? What if the best we can ever be or ever have is peaceful coexistence?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that to be fully inclusive would take a lot of work in all of our parts. There would need to be a sense of mutual adaptation. We all have to give a little. We all have to make space for each other, and we're not there yet, Josh.
No, we don't. We don't seem to be there. Now, I do know, as far as background on your career, that at one point you worked with a company where there was a serious issue of racism. And were you successful in helping that particular company?
I'm not sure which company you're referring to, and you don't have to mention them, but I would answer you this way: that I believe that the work I have 6 clients who've won major awards because of my work. So I think that the short answer is that I have been successful. I've got, as you said at the beginning, 2 psychometric assessment tools. I think the issue with racism, Josh, is that it continues to be there. I find myself on the periphery of conversations post the election that kind of make my hair stand on end. And I think, how far have we really come? How much work do we still really have to do? And you only have to watch the news and look around the world to see that somehow our cultural and racial differences are still a huge divide. So what happens in the business world? The business world, interestingly, is a driver in leading change because people learn in their workplace about these differences in a way that they can hopefully take home to their children and to their families. But I think the eradication of racism is a much bigger issue than any consultant could ever, purport to overcome.
And part of your work is to have business people think about these issues when probably most of them have really not thought about them or have thought about them on a superficial level thinking, oh, that's not an issue for me. I don't hate X group.
Yes, I think part of my work, clients have got very good diversity and inclusion policies in place. Their senior leadership have at least minimally said, yes, this is a business issue and we're serious about it, and we'd like our HR department or our chief diversity officer to come up with a program that allows us to continue to educate the employees. I think that I see my work as partnering with these chief diversity officers and with the senior leadership to bring a conversation into the workplace and a level of awareness that allows people to see how we can implement this and move beyond lip service, move beyond political correctness, and really begin to have the courageous conversations it takes in order for us to begin to be inclusive.
May I ask you, you have a tool you developed. Now, what exactly does that mean, a tool for diversity understanding? What kind of tool is that?
Okay, your phone is breaking up a little bit, Josh, but I think that you asked me the assessment tool that I've developed.
Yes.
Yes, I have 2 assessment tools. One is called Cognizant. Cognizant looks at unconscious biases and helps individuals to look at their individual patterns of bias and also the collective patterns of bias of the organization. So what happens in the program is that I customize the tool 100% to meet the needs of the client. And then individual leaders take the assessment. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes. And then they get their individual confidential one-on-one feedback, either by phone or face-to-face. And then what I then do is create an aggregate report that allows that business unit or leadership team to look at their collective patterns of bias. And that's where a lot of the real power comes in, because you move from the individual saying, yes, okay, maybe I do have a few biases, to the recognition that the organization is being impacted by these collective mindsets or collective biases. And that's where we begin to cause a change in the organization. My other assessment tool, the ISM profile, looks at inclusion skills gaps. And that's a 360-degree assessment.
What does that mean, 360-degree?
It means that the individual takes it and then they select 5 or 6 peers who also give them feedback, so they're able to see what they said about them. So you might say to yourself, okay, Helen, I'm 80% competent in all of these inclusion skills, but the 5 people who took it and gave you feedback have said, actually, Josh, you're only 65% competent. So there's a skills gap there, and there's a gap in your perception of yourself. Now, it can work the other way. You can see yourself as less competent than your peers do, but either way, there's a conversation that we can have with you to say, you see yourself as more competent than other people see you. What do you need to do to work on that?
And may I ask you, is that from your perspective, with all this experience, is that standard? People say, oh, yes, yes, I'm much better with that particular group than they actually are?
I think we have an illusion that we're nicer people, better people, et cetera, than we really are. And obviously, the brain distorts the message. So I look in the mirror and I think I'm pretty cool. And I don't always recognize the impact I'm having on other people. So if I had to say, is there one way that there's a propensity for leaning, we lean in favor of thinking that, yes, I treat people better than perhaps I do. And at the same time, obviously, self-image is part of that. Sometimes I don't think well of myself, when in actual fact I'm more competent than on any given day I believe myself to be. So, for me, working with each of these leaders is about being fully present with the individual, seeing their results, and hearing the story that they tell me, and then beginning to facilitate and guide them to look at what they need to do differently. But the one thing I'm clear about when I designed the tool is that I provided the canvas, they're the artist, and they painted the picture. And that it is my job, both with the individual and with the group, to hear what they're saying and see where are bridge points that I look at, so that you want to cause the change, because I can't cause the change. All I can do is be a facilitative guide to your process.
And when you speak with senior management or mid-level management or just business people in general among the major corporations where you have worked around the globe, do you ever see a little light bulb go off above the head and they realize, oh my goodness, you're right, I feel this way about X group and I didn't really realize I was really carrying that with me?
Yes, actually, that's one of the things that keeps me in the work. I recall last year, actually talking to a senior manager who said to me, Helen, you may have changed my life significantly today. He said, I see my job is to raise my son, and it is my wife's job to raise my daughter. He said, and after talking to you about gender issues and looking at my own cognizant results, I'm going home tonight to talk to my wife and to tell her that I would like to play a more active role in raising my daughter. He was quite emotional in that conversation, because I think he realized that the position that he was unconsciously taking was withholding from his daughter a lot of knowledge and skills that he could offer, so that she would be in a stronger position to face a work world along with not just other women but men. So these moments all make me feel this is why I do this work. I also recall interviewing an Indian male who was he was having a lot of trouble. His cognizant results showed that he was very uncomfortable with Anglo-Australians. This was in Australia last year. And he said halfway through the interview, Helen, he said, I came to Australia when I was 6 years of age. And he said, I was bullied at school. He's a young Indian boy. And he said, I thought I was over it. He said, but when I look at these results, I realize I'm not. I'm still carrying some negative feelings and a lack of trust. And I really need to work on that. So these light bulb moments, Josh, are make my job worthwhile. They're the reason I do the work, is because I care. Now, you don't always get light bulb moments, and I have to say that diversity and inclusion work is not always easy. But when you get these moments in a group or with an individual, you know that you've made a difference, and that's what makes a difference to me.
Let me ask you along the same lines, and I don't want to betray any biases on my part, but the man who told you he lets his wife raise the daughter and he raises the son, was that an American man?
No.
Right. The reason I say that is because, I'm a middle-aged male, and it seems to me that that would be kind of a surprising statement, I would imagine, for any American man to say of my age group, and the younger ones probably would find that, let's say it was a 35-year-old American man, he'd probably really laugh at that.
Well, you know what, Josh, without getting too deeply into your biases,
right.
What I would say is that it's not all that unusual. I mean, I think what might be unusual is that any man would admit to that. I thought it was very courageous of him to admit it, but I would not put it aside as well an American man wouldn't do that, because a lot of my work is done here in America, and I can promise you that there are conversations I have that are equally enlightening. So I just think that the real issue here is to take each individual and their story, because we've all kind of carved a story about who we are, and we're operating out of that story and assuming it's correct. And I think that the biggest challenge, and the thing that fascinates me about unconscious bias, way beyond just diversity and inclusion, is the whole neuroscience, or the neuropsychology of the brain, and how what we think is right isn't necessarily right. What have we done to construct a story about our lives, and do we ever challenge that story? And if we do challenge that story, how would it change how we look at people?
That's right. That's interesting. For those of you just tuning in today to Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, we're speaking with Dr. Helen Turnbull, who is a practiced organizational development consultant, and Dr. Turnbull, as CEO of Human Facets, is a global inclusion and diversity specialist. Helen, I have a question for you, a broad question about generations. If you're working with business people who are 60, or if you're working with business people who are 35, male or female at either age group, is there a difference in perception?
A difference in perception based on?
On how they view people who are different from them.
You know what? I think that there is a myth that younger people are more open to diversity issues, and if we could just get rid of all these baby boomers out of the workplace, all this racism and prejudice would go away. But you know what, Josh? It won't. And I actually taught as an adjunct professor for a while at a local university here in the business school, and some of my students asked to take a version of Cognizant, and they were all Gen Yers, and they were confident that they would really have very sophisticated views on differences. And much to their surprise, their views really tracked with the societal prejudices. Their issues around sexual orientation, they're not comfortable. They were not comfortable with people of African descent or Latinos. So I would actually say that, do we think that Generation Y are more open to diversity? At some level they are, but remember, people are getting their messages from the generations that came before them. And so I don't think that we can assume that just because the baby boomers are getting close to retirement, or in fact some of them have retired, that these issues are going to go away. Because if they were to go away, something else replaces them. There's an evolution in this process in terms of that hierarchy. An African-American writer called Derek Bell wrote a book called Faces at the Bottom of the Well. It's an excellent book, and I'll never forget the ending where, and I won't spoil the book for anyone that hasn't read it, but basically what he argues is that if you take one whole group out of society, who drops to the bottom? Because there's always going to be somebody at the bottom, and that's our human tendency, is to think of ourselves as superior. And that's what makes me question, how do we move to inclusiveness? I was watching a YouTube video last night. It was a TED Talk, actually, and about Iran and Israel, and about a man who posted a picture on Facebook from Israel to Iran, and he said, we love you and we don't want to have war with your country, or something to that effect. And he was astounded by the response he got from it. And people from Iran and people from Israel all posting pictures for each other. And I thought, that it would be so nice if the world were like that. If we could all just, as Rodney King said, all just get along. But I just wonder if we're ever going to get beyond that human tendency to think of ourselves, even at the country club, as better than others.
I have a question, obviously, about this topic. So our generation, boomers, we were the first generation when women would be doctors, lawyers, accountants, business people of all types, and our generation, from my perspective, was open to that and was like, is that even an issue? Whereas our parents' generation, our parents who fought the Second World War, talented women they were either nurses, frankly, or school teachers in the United States, and that was all pretty much women were allowed to do. And now that women of our generation and the younger women really think, well, no, I can do anything I want to do, and people experience women who are attorneys and physicians and accountants and business people, is the exposure to the women, do people realize, oh yeah, women just as good as men? Or am I mistaken in thinking that?
Respect
Okay.
that. I think that the sexism is still there. I don't think we think that women are just as good as men. I think we think that women and men are different, and indeed they are. Their styles of leadership are different. And what shows up in Cognizant, and I've had hundreds of conversations now with male and female leaders, and two of the things that show up that are very interesting is one, quite often men will say to me, the women on my team are great. They're hard workers. They get things done. I trust them to get things done. But their Cognizant results show that men are more assertive, men are more aggressive, men are more career-driven, and men exhibit better leadership qualities. And then they attribute to women things like being a team player and being giving a positive first impression and being good at representing the company. And you see, I think that it is in that data that the underbelly of unconscious bias lies. So what we say is, my women are great, and I love having women on my team, and they do a great job. But when it comes down to it, if I want somebody to take the hill, then it's the men in the organization that exhibit stronger leadership. It's the men in the organization that are more serious about their careers, and it's the men in the organization that are more assertive and more tenacious.
Okay, that's interesting.
And that's the unconscious bias.
Helen, for those of you just tuning in to Here's to Your Health, we're speaking with Dr. Helen Turnbull, who is involved with organizational development as an organizational development consultant. And we're going to take a very short break, and we'll be back with Dr. Helen Turnbull after these important messages.
Hands can do incredible things. This is the sound of 326 hands playing Mozart. This is the sound of 10,942 hands showing appreciation. 64 hands building a house for the homeless. 142 hands swimming a triathlon. 18 hands winning the big game. And this is the sound of 2 hands helping to save a life. It's called hands-only CPR, and it's recommended by the American Heart Association. If an adult suddenly collapses, call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of their chest until help arrives. It's incredibly easy and effective. Hands can do incredible things, but nothing compares to using them to help save a life. Find out more about this latest method of CPR at handsonlycpr.org. A message from the American Heart Association.
Oh, your skin looks great.
Thank you.
What's your secret?
Frankincense and myrrh oil by Ancient Essence.
Frankincense and myrrh oil by Ancient Essence?
Yes, it's a beauty secret used since the time of the Greeks and Romans. The spa in Malibu told me about frankincense and myrrh by Ancient Essence, and now my skin is lovely.
Well, your skin looks great.
Call Ancient Essence at 1-800-627-9813. Discover the secret of beautiful skin. Call 1-800-627-9813. Discover the secret. Frankincense and myrrh oil by Ancient Essence. Discover the secret of beautiful skin. Available at fine spas and beauty centers.
Hi, I'm Tash Walker, and I want you to join me every Saturday evening from 5 to 8 p.m. for Cocktails with Tash Walker, where each week is going to be a big party. Why? Come celebrate with me for the very first lifestyle entertainment sports show. And on my cocktail menu, I have special celebrity guests stopping through, and you never know who might come through, boo. It just might be one of your favorite sports celebrities. From Cocktails with Tash Walker, the Entertainment Lifestyle Sports Show. right here every Saturday night where we're more than just talk. We're Cocktails with Tosh Walker on latalklive.com.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this New Year's Day edition of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live. I'm your host, Joshua Lane, and our guest is Dr. Helen Turnbull, who is a practiced organizational specialist, and her work is global inclusion and diversity in the workplace. Dr. Turnbull, you are included in a book by Deepak Chopra. Was it an interview or was it an article you'd written?
I was actually interviewed by the author of the book. I believe Deepak Chopra and Ken Blanchard also contributed chapters to that book.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asked to talk about unconscious bias in managing your blind spots.
And so this applies, of course, you focus really in business situation, and you mentioned you were teaching a graduate seminar at Nova University, and the younger students you found were not any less biased?
Not any less biased than anyone else who's ever taken the assessment. That's correct. I mean, what I find is that there's a lot of work that we need to do cross-generationally in the workplace, and a lot of conversations that my clients are having because of the demographic shifts. We're having to keep more and more baby boomers in the workplace, Josh, and to figure out how to creatively allow them to work flexibly so that they can stay, because there are less millennials, if you like, or the younger generation available to us. And so therefore what the challenge is for my clients is, how do you get the Gen Yers and the baby boomers and the Gen Xers not just talking to each other but understanding each other and making space for each other so that they can work together effectively?
Yes. And now you mentioned how every group prefers to work with their own group. Men find men more competent, women find women more competent. Or am I wrong in saying that? Do women find women more competent?
Well, no, I didn't say that. I didn't say that men prefer men and women prefer women. What I actually said was that we all prefer affinity. We prefer to surround ourselves with people who make us comfortable, and that can actually be for women. There's a lot of women that prefer to work with men, Josh. In fact, some of the unconscious biases. I talked to a senior woman at one point who started her interview with me by saying that she was a strong supporter of other women, and ended her interview by saying, "Gosh, Helen, I had no idea that I've been drinking the Kool-Aid as well," because her results showed that she thinks of men as being stronger leaders and being more assertive and more career-driven, etc. And so that her conscious belief is that she supports women, and her unconscious patterns were that she saw men as better leaders. And what she realized in the conversation was that she's pretty hard on other women, because she's trying to pull them up to a level, a mind level that she has thought of as a male-dominated character. So it wouldn't be true to say that women prefer working with women, or indeed that men prefer working with men. I think all of that is down to individuals. But when you look statistically, clearly, if men, first of all, men do run our corporations around the world, and secondly, if men find other men who went to the same school as them, then there is a tendency to find a sense of affinity. I mean, you were talking earlier about language, and there's no question in my mind that if I'm surrounded by people who speak English in a British way and have a Scottish sense of humor, it makes me incredibly comfortable. I spent a couple of weeks in Germany this year, or last year actually, in 2012, and I was with my colleagues who developed my software, and they speak some English. I speak no German. We had a great time together, Josh, but I have to tell you, we were all exhausted at the end of every day from managing the language differences, and we were friends and wanted to make it work. So I actually think that differences and being around people who think differently and are different from us is major amounts of psychological effort.
Mm. Well, I guess you have a lot of experience, so your ideas really count. May I ask, are certain business groups better than others? For example, are the bankers better? For example, are the finance guys better? Are the construction guys not so good? I'm asking a broad question here. Are certain groups of people maybe somehow more open to the ideas or more aware of the ideas?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that I've worked with many different industries. I've worked in banking quite extensively. I've worked in high tech and pharmaceuticals. I've also worked in the oil and gas industry. And I would say that you as a consultant have to get to know the culture of the organization. Just like there's a geographic and country-based culture, there's also organizational culture, and there's also an industry culture. And what for me is the early skill that I need to apply when I'm working with a client is to listen to their stories and to hear what the culture, what the culture of that company and what the culture of that industry is, and then to quickly get on board with that. But to answer your broad question, no, I don't think any individual or any group is better at this. I think the human tendency is for affinity, and the human challenge is to embrace differences, and I think we all have that, and it is to the degree that you are willing to be open-minded, open your heart and your mind. Aristotle said the unexamined life is not worth living. And for me, the challenge is to help my clients, to help the people I interact with, to stop long enough, to be mindful for long enough, to say, I'm willing to look at this issue, and that in looking at this issue, go no further than the mirror. Look at yourself. It's a Michael Jackson Man in the Mirror song. It's go no further than yourself. Go no further than your own inner voice. Is there congruency between what you're saying and what you're thinking? And if there's not, and quite often for most of us there isn't at times, then in that lack of congruency, I would say that there's leakage, that people can tell when we're not comfortable with them, even when we think we're hiding it. So I think all of us have work to do regardless of our race, our gender, our sexual orientation, our culture, or the company and industry that we work in.
Well, Helen Turnbull, Dr. Helen Turnbull, thank you very much for this interview today. Dr. Turnbull, how can people contact your organization, Human Facets?
Okay. My website is www.humanfacets.com, and my email address is Dr. Helen Turnbull, that's BULL, at humanfacets.com, and my office telephone number is 954 370-6343.
Can you give us that information just once again?
Yes. The website is www.humanfacets.com. My email address is Dr. Helen Turnbull, that's BULL, at facets.com. And my office telephone number is 954 370-6343.
Dr. Helen Turnbull, it has been a great pleasure to have you as a guest on Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Josh. I enjoyed it, and a Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Helen.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This is Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. We're going to take a very short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Young Connection, your one-stop connection for all your graphic design and commercial printing needs.
Young Connection is a full-service printing and media design company dedicated to providing the highest level of customer service and satisfaction. Young Connection provides swift response and rapid turnaround services for banners, brochures, business cards, letterheads, church bulletins, funeral programs, flyers, logo design, posters, and much, much more, all at an affordable price. Young Connection, the official printing company of LA Talk Live. Give them a call at 310-491-3336. That's 310-491-3336, or visit their website at www.youngconnection.com. That's www.youngconnection.com. Young Connection Printing and Media Services, proud sponsors of LA Talk Live, where it's more than just talk.
Okra Group Personal Chefs, proud sponsors of Let's Do Lunch with Chef Richard Petty. Okra Group Personal Chefs have been providing quality gourmet culinary services to distinctive homes since 2004. For a free evaluation of dietary needs, call 818-850-9584. That's 818-850-9584. We will design a custom menu that fits your needs. So call us today, Okra Group Personal Chefs. Let us personally make you a dish.
Hi, this is Susie Pruden. And yes, you've seen me on Oprah, Good Morning America, and The Today Show. And I'm inviting you to join me every Monday from 3 to 4 for my new show, Mastermind Live. Join us as we introduce you to the new thought leaders of the world who will inspire you, support you, and guide you to your next level. So don't forget to tune into Mastermind Live exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live. I'm your host, Joshua Lane, and our guest is Michele Garcia, who works with Active Recovery Solutions, works with problems of human addiction. Yes. Michele, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Josh. Wonderful to be here.
You've been, I guess, on my show before, and you work here in the Los Angeles, Malibu area.
Yes, I do.
And so what exactly is your subject?
Well, I'm an interventionist, so I work with families and changing systems to more healthy systems so that they can overcome the problems that come up with codependence or, addiction, and step into, co-committed relationships that are healthy and, a life without, addiction as, this bondage that, basically keeps people from being their true selves.
And the word addiction, can you offer me a professional... Give me a professional diagnosis of what the word addiction means.
There are very many different addictions to be, discussed. We can get into the primary one that I work with is alcohol and drug addiction, which my understanding is that it's it's an obsession of the mind coupled by a physical allergy. And we do things to hurt our spirits when that addiction takes place, and it can happen in manifestation of other things as well, like shopping or, internet. There's a lot of things out there that can be really, and it's about treating the spirit, it's a spiritual malady. So if I can, help people to find a safe space where they can work on that, where they can rebuild their spirits, there stands a safe chance of living a really full and rich life.
And alcohol and drug addiction, they're pretty serious subjects. I had one of the representatives from Mothers Against Drunk Driving on my show.
Nice.
Which is a very good group. And I remember back in the 70s, if someone was killed by a drunk driver, people thought, oh, it's just too bad, and that was it. Now, of course, a person who kills you in their car and they hit your car, that person hopefully goes to jail. But in the 70s, people thought, oh, it's just too bad, and they let it go. But now society has moved on and recognized, no, that person who's drunk is responsible. The woman who was on from Mothers Against Drunk Driving, she told me that 200,000 people in the state of California are arrested every year for drunk driving. And I had no idea it was that many people.
It's astounding. You know, Josh, I'm glad you brought that up. And there is a lot of solution around that. I actually just posted something on my Facebook page. AAA freely, you don't even have to have AAA, had a phone number you could call last night for New Year's Eve and get someone to drive you to pick you up so that you don't have to drive drunk.
Oh, that's a very nice thing for them to do. Good
Absolutely.
for them.
Very, very, very proactive, you know, and thankfully people are getting more educated and there are more solutions, you know, being given, you know, brought forward. Like that's basically what my mission is, to help, you know, bring solution forward for people so they don't have to live, you know, just basically with the death is the future for that, you know, or jails or institutionalization. And back in the day, that's what people did with alcoholics. They've stuck them in institutions. Said, oh, crazy, you know, and it doesn't have to be like that today. We're a lot more educated, a lot more evolved.
Is there a definition that you offer for who is an alcoholic? Some people might say, if you drink one beer a year, you're an alcoholic. Other people might say, no. 1 drink a day for a male, or maybe 2 drinks a day for a male, 1 drink a day for a female, is perfectly healthy and not a problem. Do you have a perspective?
That's, you know, it's so hard to say because it's a self-diagnosed, like alcoholism is considered a self-diagnosed disease. So it's really, you know, there's questionnaires that you can find online where if you answer, you know, like yes to 3 or more of these questions, it'll be like 12 questions, you know, you're alcoholic, you're probably alcoholic, and here's where you can go, you know, see about like some meetings. For a lot of people, it's beyond just going to like AA meetings. They need to go to a facility where they can get some safe, you know, structure around them that help them recreate their lives and support that's 24/7.
And so is alcohol the number 1 problem in the country for addictions?
Honestly, yes.
Alcohol.
Yeah.
And yet, you don't see much about alcohol on ABC, NBC, or CBS, do you? I mean, you don't see much. Alcohol's a problem. I don't see much of it.
I don't even watch the news anymore. You know, it's just so depressing. And I'm incredibly proactive, very solution-based lifestyle. So it's really hard for me to watch all that. Though it's good to, you know, to find out what's going on with the, you know, some
and
things.
If alcohol is such a major problem in this country, are we evolving as a culture that people recognize, oh, alcohol is a problem?
Slowly, yes.
Now, may I ask a personal question? You're involved with this work because as a younger girl, as a younger woman, you really thought, you went through a period where you thought, I'm not being real good with myself?
I went through a period where I was hurting myself by self-medicating with alcohol, and then it progressed into drugs. And so, you know, at about 1991, actually, I, you know, thankfully was 12-stepped into program, and then I realized I needed to go to treatment, and I was able to go to a women's treatment center, and it helped me tremendously. And I'm in transformation daily. You know, my life is about transformation and, you know, growing and spiritually evolving and doing new things to help more people to do so too.
So you passed through the I'll use broad substance abuse phase very young. Is that you passed through it very young and then just
these days, to tell you the truth, Josh, a lot of people are getting hooked on drugs really even younger than I was. There are a lot of medications in the pharmacy world that are just really, unfortunately, highly addictive.
Like OxyContin?
OxyContin, yes, that's would be a good example. Now, I understand that they're making it in forms that they don't have to actually, they could chop it up and, you know, do things with their, like, put it in a syringe and stuff, that they're making it in forms that they can't do that and this and that. But it's basically like a small pill that all of a sudden you're like strung out on heroin. So it's thankfully there's, you know, people are embracing solution more so that, you know, and people are becoming more aware that is the case. If like you take that pill off the medicine cabinet, you know, it's not like it's just your headache that's going to go away. It's going to hurt your spirit too.
Right. But you passed through as a teenager, right? You had a problem or an issue in retrospect, but in your teenage years you stopped. Is that it?
Yeah, yes, I did. Thank God, and and it is progressive, so I've got to continue to grow spiritually daily, and I get to do that with my life today. So,
And if someone is drinking alcohol and they think we should really, this is really not a good idea any longer, may I ask what is part of the program you offer them?
well, I have a whole team of people that do more than just intervention work, but events as well. Like I do community fun things so that people that, initially, you just want to find out where can I go? Where's a good fit for me? And, we'll ask a series of questions that help us properly place them. So, if somebody is younger or older or, has insurance, doesn't have insurance, there's all kinds of different places, whether it be state or, private places or, different locations in the world. And really my company's acclimated with every place all over in any state. So, I can place them in the right place. And often, it's good for them to change into a different state and get away from their environment based on, the consultation. And getting to know that addiction is progressive and understand that it's not the person, but it's just, you suffer from, this malady that it hurts the spirit. It's a relief for most of us, and then basically they can move into solution. But 3 months is usually the standard time for people to stay in a treatment center and then move into aftercare. But it depends on everyone's situation. But that's pretty much the standard. Like stay for 3 months, and then you can start to feel the shift happen where you start to think more clearly and you can make choices, and you're not completely bounded by your addiction, whatever that might be, whatever it might be.
Right. For those of you just tuning in to Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, we're speaking with Michele Garcia, president of Active Recovery Solutions, which works with problems with addiction here in the Los Angeles, Malibu area. Michele, so 3 months sounds like a long time. It's a very moment, 3 months,
right.
But 3 months actually is a very short time.
It really does.
You think so? People need counseling so they get a sense of themselves, and 3 months to avoid the alcohol or whatever substance they're abusing before they kind of really think, okay, now I really feel comfortable. I think maybe I could stop using that.
Right. They get beyond counseling, they get like real therapy sessions where they get to work through issues, and they get out into the ocean and maybe go learn how to surf or kayak or, do some yoga that treats the body, mind, and soul, learn how to eat right, learn how to eat, period. Like sometimes they just have to relearn how to do basically everything.
So they do learn some wellness stuff. Like, for example, I guess that people learn yoga or weightlifting or kayaking or tennis, whatever, they get to use their body in a different way, and they realize, oh, this is actually fun. I kind of like this, as opposed to maybe just going to a bar and drinking, which I guess must initially for a lot of people be fun, right? It must be fun, or they wouldn't do it. I mean, I guess it's fun. Or is it easy and fun? Or I'm not quite sure. But
I imagine in the beginning it looks like that, but then it ends up just like being isolated at home and self-medicating, just to deal with emotions or that they don't want to work through that come forward, But yeah, there's a natural endorphin that's released in the body when you do exercise, and you can feel really good naturally. I mean, that's the natural state can be a very uplifting place to be with if you can just learn how to be with it.
But people have to learn that. I mean, it's like learning to play tennis. You have to learn to play tennis or learn to drive the car, and then it's actually pretty simple. But you do have to learn to drive the car, and then put your time in driving the car, and then you get better at driving the car. So you're saying it's kind of the same as that.
It's a lot like that. It's relearning how to do life in life's terms, live life on life's terms. Yeah.
And I don't want to put you on the spot too much on this one, but so you don't drink alcohol at all, right?
No, I'm abstaining from any mind-altering substances today.
Right. And you just feel that's just a smart move health-wise, right? I mean, health-wise, spiritually,
yes.
It's a smart move.
Yes. And I'm also, I'm in my second year for my master's in spiritual psychology. And really, in my experience with what I've learned there, I think I've gotten even closer to getting into tune with really being free from things that change, just really being my authentic self, and helping other people to get the chance to embrace that as well.
And alcohol does seem like a terrible problem. I really feel that alcohol is a terrible problem in the United States and worldwide. And I also drink zero alcohol because I just think alcohol is bad for you. I mean, alcohol is ethanol. It's a cardiotoxin. It really can't be defended. Some people say, oh, no, there's substances in red wine called OPCs, which are bioflavonoids, which are good for us. And that's actually accurate. But you still have to deal with the alcohol, which is ethanol. And you could get all the OPCs you need by eating red grapes. You don't have to drink alcohol. But the alcohol industry is still very big, and it's not going away.
You know what, though? Like, really, like they say in AA, our hats are off to people who can drink, and if you can drink and enjoy it, that's great. There's just some people that cannot do that, that when they ingest it, they experience a physical allergy. It makes them crave more, and they can stop thinking about it until they do that. And then they the insanity kicks in, and they just want to just continue to do it, even though they'd swear not to do it again. They clearly could see that their life was becoming completely unmanageable, and they were doing things that were hurting themselves and people who they love. But it's just insidious. It's just really insane because it's like a blackout. You don't remember, and you just keep doing it again. And it's a really lonely, painful place to reside in. And but the good news is there is a solution. And so it's nice to be a small part in a great whole of people who really know how to embrace that.
No, it seems like an important topic. I speak with a lot of people, say my age or 10 years younger or even 20 years younger or 10 years older, and these people who really don't drink very often. So they say, oh, we went to a party, we went to a wedding, and we drank a glass of whatever, alcohol. And I say, well, how did you feel the next day? Did you feel not so good? And they said, oh, yeah, we felt lousy. I had no energy, and my back hurt, my neck hurt, and I was in a bad mood, and my stomach was bothering me. And I said, well, why do you think that was? They said, well, I don't know, the alcohol probably isn't real good for me. I said, right, it's not real good for you. It's bad for you. And since you haven't had any in like 6 months, and you drank a glass, the body says, okay, I'm going to make you feel diminished the next day. Not dead, but diminished. You feel lousy. And people think, oh, yeah, we didn't thought of it that way. Yeah, because it's bad for us. It does upset me a little bit that alcohol is such a problem in the United States. And really, the powers that be don't discuss it. They're busy talking about heroin and cocaine, and those are certainly bad for us. But those seem like so small compared to the problems with alcohol. But I guess the alcohol guys have a lot of clout, and they give a lot of money to a lot of people in the Senate and the Congress. And so really, I don't ever hear any political party ever talking about it.
And it's socially acceptable in a lot of places, to drink. So that makes it.
We are speaking with Michele Garcia of Active Recovery Solutions, and you're listening to us today on the LA Talk Live radio network. This is Here's to Your Health. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We'll be right back with Michele Garcia after these important messages.
Journey Sisters is an organization that embodies and captivates women from all walks of life. Our membership includes 44 women that are constantly growing in the areas of personal development and community involvement. Monthly, we offer free leadership classes at McCade's Restaurant. Journey aims to inform women in the areas of heart disease and HIV and AIDS. Experience the journey now by logging into www.journeymosaicinc.com. Toll free 888-906-5519. Journey with no excuses.
Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to The Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv. or catch us on the Live 365 network. And now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for a new show right here on LA Talk Live, The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. And our guest is Michele Garcia, president of Active Recovery Solutions, which works with problems of addiction here in the California, in the Los Angeles, Malibu area. Mm-hmm. And how long has this organization been around?
4 years now. Yeah.
And do you now you mentioned you work with everyone, but do you specialize? Is there a particular group that you seem to attract?
It varies, it's all age ranges. Like I wanted to say like the youth because there's a lot more prevalent addiction going on with the youth right now. But to be honest, I get random calls from all different age. And also often I deal with the family or some loved one and then help them move them into, going into a safe place and then deal with everyone all at once, there. And I mostly work with like centers, and you'll see them on my website that do a lot of family work. And I think family work is really key important, whether you Skype it or you show up and do some family work. Mm-hmm. Because one of the main reasons why people end up relapsing is either they go home to a broken family system, and it just triggers a lot of emotional charge. And with that, they don't have the tools refined enough yet or practiced enough yet, so to speak. And they just end up back where they were.
Right.
And
so
worse.
They don't have the tools. They come from a difficult situation, and the way in which they deal with it is they start to drink or drug. Mm-hmm. Then they leave the situation and come back after a 3-month period. Situation is the same largely, mm-hmm. and so they can, without support, fall back into the earlier patterns.
This is true, yeah. And it takes years to practice something. When you've practiced, self-medicating as your tools to work through feelings as they come up, it's going to take a while to reverse these, solutions and use your new tools, even when you're experiencing some uncomfortable, unfamiliar feelings. So.
Well, what do you do when you're working with 12-year-olds who are heavily involved with substance abuse, which I think happens quite a lot now, doesn't it? Or it's maybe always happened, but it seems to be happening now for sure.
There's a couple of really good centers in Malibu that work with the youth. There's a lot of centers just globally, basically, that work with youth now, thankfully. So whether it be residential or outpatient treatment. A lot of people are working with one-on-one, life coaches, they call them, where they actually go to their homes and help them, coach them on how to relive their life. But, essentially it's good to just move into a different environment. This way they're detached from the family system in a way that they can focus on theirs, and then integrate the family into their youth treatment center where they specialize in that. There's special licensing involved with, working mm-hmm. and having a adolescent treatment center. But it's something that's great. I'm glad that the youth is, and the parents are not being, shamed or, just not, honest with themselves about what's going on. It's best to just get honest with it and then move into solution. And there's plenty of professionals like myself that are available to help you find the right fit and to help you, work through whatever comes up as it comes up, because it's different for everyone. But the main thing is just moving into solution and getting honest with the self.
And the 12-year-olds, I mean, aren't there a lot of very young ones involved with all sorts of bad drugs? I mean, certainly, I think pretty much all of us would agree a 12-year-old shouldn't be drinking and drugging. That's just a bad idea. If you're 18, maybe you think, I'll drink a few drinks or whatever. But when you're 12, it seems like a bad idea. And isn't there a lot of that? I mean, there was a lot of that when I was 12 and 13. So, I mean, I don't think it's anything particularly new at all.
It's hugely prevalent. I think, like just like we were discussing earlier, it has a lot to do with pharmaceutical drugs that are being manufactured, and it's just the first thing that comes to me is if there were some more like educational programs out there. I myself have gone and spoken at different places. I've volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club, and I do talk to places where I can outreach so we can be preventative. So before the problem happens, they realize that there's a choice, and here's what it looks like, and here's some of the cautions to take into consideration. And it's very valuable to if you can reach the youth before they get into a position where they're completely already strung out, and keeping it a secret. The thing I noticed with the pills in the youth that get it from the parents' medicine cabinets, sometimes they don't want to throw it away because it was expensive or whatever. They just leave it on the shelf. And unfortunately, curious as the youth might be and not knowing what they're getting into, they're sneakily having a habit, and pills tend to be like kind of one of those sneaky kind of, you can hide it and it's not so bad because a doctor gave it or something, kind of excusing in the mind. And it just really hurts themselves and the entire family, of course.
Sure. And 12 and 13-year-olds, from my perspective, do not have the emotional skills to cope with addiction. They're just 12 and 13, So what do you tell a 12-year-old? I mean, what are some of the things you'd say to someone who's a 12-year-old listening to this broadcast who's thinking, I'm drinking a lot of alcohol, I'm doing a lot of whatever I'm doing, whatever the special drug they're doing these days is. And they probably think maybe they're the only one, or no one knows, or it doesn't affect them. What do you say to them?
Well, it's way funner to live life, without doing drugs, and, basically, like, I do big sober talent show events, and I make fun sober opportunities for community to get together, and I embrace just being creative and having fun without drugs, so that there's an attraction, because you can't convince an alcoholic or an addict in the grips of their disease that oh, you shouldn't do that. They've pretty much got to come to a place where they're like, oh, this doesn't work, I'm miserable, I need help. And when that happens, graciously, there's many people out there that will help. And again, I just to try to be an attraction, to understand that, my gosh, living life on life's terms is absolutely amazing. We're walking into a new dimension. We experience life in a very high vibrational level. You vibrate, like you feel everything really amazingly, and it stays with you, and you don't have to obviously deal with all of the repercussions, and there are really serious repercussions of doing drugs and alcohol. It's not cute, it's not funny anymore, it's not cool anymore. Back in the 60s, I don't think people were as educated as we are today, that we understand that it is just not cool to be out of it. To be conscious is more cool.
And 12-year-olds who really, once again, not to pick on the 12-year-olds, but they're 12 and 13, and so do you attempt, among other things, to get them involved with sports or other things so they can demonstrate their skills, they can learn skills and demonstrate their skills?
Absolutely.
They can have certain mastery on certain things.
Yes. Well, I actually was really active in doing sober fun days for a while there, and one of the main things that I kept,
super fun days.
Sober fun.
Oh,
sober fun days. So we get together with a bunch of people that are sober and create a day where we go out and do something really fun. And then one of the things I've done consistently are the sober talent shows, because it's been very popular with everyone.
Yeah, where are those talent shows? They're around Malibu, aren't they?
I've done 7 in a row, and the last one
you
I
can
did
tell us where they are.
Was at Froggy's in Topanga Canyon. I did one at the Malibu Inn before that. I did one in Hollywood at a theater. I did one in in LA. I live on the west side, so I've been choosing places closer to myself in the communities people that I know that are sober out that way. But people come from the valley and all over. I've had people fly from a different state to perform and come. And it's been wonderful. And another thing, I know that the treatment centers that I'm working with, like Oceanside, Malibu, do a lot of really out of the box, fun, experiential things with the clients, like going into the ocean and going kayaking, or taking them out to some fun event going on. I just did something called the Love and Light Festival, for example, and that was in Palm Springs, and we had fire dancers and we had a lot of healers come together and do some great breath work and rebirthing work, and it was really transformational. I had beautiful texts from people. I mean, one of the things I love about the holidays are the beautiful texts I get, people thanking me for, helping save their lives. So,
that must be nice.
It's really,
nice
really
text
rewarding.
to get.
Yeah. And so I got a lot of thank yous though too, was from the Love and Light Festival, and it felt really good too.
That was just a few weeks ago.
Yeah. It was fun to go to the hot springs and and just take care of and replenish the soul, and just rejuvenate and be out in the desert and go hiking and with everyone.
So in other words, a bunch of people, maybe about a large number of people, are with other people of a like mind who are not drinking or drugging. They are sober and they're attempting to create a better lifestyle for themselves. And so it's camaraderie.
It's about, and absolutely. And, that particular event was definitely about doing more clearing work to, have more love in our hearts and be able to love more as a result, and we do the kind of spiritual work, and it's like moving up the soul line instead of just the goal line. Like, oh, if I get a car, I'm going to be happier. When I get this house, I mean, that's great to have goals. I think they're wonderful, but I think that if they're aligned with your soul line and, really being conscious of like, okay, what can I do for, my soul? You can experience more love and, higher consciousness and, just a greater sense of being, so makes the goals far more enriching. To have half the things that you thought you need to get and to have that weren't really going to, let you reside in more of a space of loving or higher, consciousness. And
so when you tell people this, it's an attempt or it's an idea so that they feel less pressure to have a Mercedes or so what do people say when you tell them that you don't really need to have that Mercedes, or you don't need to have the house on wherever the house is?
It's not, anybody doesn't need to have anything. Right. I think things are great, but it's not like you can take it with you when you die. Like, right. It's important also to be conscious of your soul line and also do things that, bring you up the soul line. The goal line can only move across from like maybe bad to good, but it's like you're not going to feel, as good as you're going to experience more room for loving, when you move up the soul line. So it's good just to align the two, just like be conscious that you have a soul, nurture it, be good to it, do things that feel good to you, not just about things or goals in life, and, it's valuable, and it makes the things that you do achieve when you achieve them more precious and more meaningful to you.
So it's this, you try to, as much as you can in your organization, impart a sense of self.
Yeah, well,
which actually is important, especially again to the real young ones. Because as a teenage boy, I managed to avoid the drinking and drug thing. God bless me, I just became vegetarian.
Wonderful.
But I had a lot of friends who were doing it, and I always thought, oh, not a problem. Just it's kind of a way station that you pass through. You do this, and then you do this, and then you're doing this and this and this, and doing something different. So when I saw friends in college drinking and drugging, God knows what they were doing, I thought, oh, okay. It's kind of a little bohemian way station. It's like they're bohemians, or we're bohemians, from age 16 or 17 to age 21 or 22, and then you find you're in graduate school or you're working or whatever, and like you move through it. And luckily, the friends I had didn't pass away. They stopped being dopey, in retrospect, and just moved on to other stuff. And that was my take on it. I thought it was just a way station. But I guess that was and I'm not in support of drugs or drinking, but I'm just saying that was just my experience. But then when I had friends tell me about their 12-year-old brothers and sisters who were doing X, I thought, that seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because the 12-year-olds have no coping skills. The 18-year-olds didn't have much coping skills either, in retrospect. But the 12-year-olds certainly didn't. And people need to be informed.
And also to just to create opportunities and people's embrace doing new things that feel good without having to alter your consciousness because, it just needs to be understood that you're hurting your soul when you do these things, and if you're alcoholic, it's going to be a real problem because, it's really hard to stop. It takes like a whole tribe of people to help you, and you can't really do it alone. So,
Excuse me, you mentioned the kayaking and other sports. And is the sport used as a therapeutic tool because it recognizes that the alcoholic has a physical body and they need to exercise that physical body and nourish it properly, and that the alcoholism adversely impacts that?
I love your health conscious perspective. Yes, and absolutely. I think it's wonderful to do all of that and you nurture
But most of them do kind of
ourselves.
need it, don't they? I mean, because when you drink alcohol, doesn't it adversely affect your blood sugar?
Absolutely.
Makes you more diabetic and pushes in towards diabetes. And if you get old enough and you're really, really bad with yourself, and you're 50 or 60 or whatever, or even younger, you can be diabetic because, hey, you haven't been good with yourself.
That's absolutely true. And also a lot of people suffer from mental illness as a result. So for example, your chemistry is offset from a series of doing different drugs. And when you get back to living sober, you're just not like organically balanced.
Right.
So there are psych meds that can be helpful as a tool to get to a place where you're finally, balanced again. Again, nothing is permanent except the love of God, like Gandhi says. But I understand it's a dangerous step with the pharmaceutical world because sometimes they'll say, well, you're going to be on this forever, and it could be post-drug, effects, and it's important to take a look at. It really is because then you're addicted to psych meds and all of the handicaps that can come from hurting the liver or just the side effects that can come from that. And but I believe if you just continue to do, and it's been in my experience, you just continue to do the spiritual work and you're living a life of spiritual principles, you will come to notice if that starts to takes place and just to be aware and mindful, and if you just stick with the winners, you'll hear it, and
What do you mean stick with the winners?
People who care about themselves and do things that they like to do in life, that feel right, that don't have a lot of bad side effects, that aren't hurting themselves or other people. Just practicing random acts of kindliness is like one really great way to just start feeling
Seems
good
like a good
about
thing,
you.
really. Yeah, seems like a good thing.
It's so simple and it's so old school, but it works, and it works back in the 60s, and it works.
No, it's only
today.
simple after you know it.
Yeah, well,
No, seriously, people. I mean, you might tell someone something that's very basic as a counselor, and they never heard it before, and they suddenly realize, oh, okay, now we know. But until you told them, they didn't know. I think I know that I've had a lot of moments like that when someone tells me something very simple, and I think, oh, I had no idea. I mean, who knew? And then it kind of moves you in a new direction. And let me just mention this: Abraham Hoffer. Dr. Abraham Hoffer had the pleasure of hearing lecture in person. In 1951, he's an MD psychiatrist from Canada. He began to use the B vitamin niacin, just niacin, 1951, for schizophrenic patients and got great results. And one thing about alcohol is it washes all the B vitamins out of the body and trace minerals, chromium, selenium, and zinc. So, this was 1951, it was a long time ago. And Hoffer had good results with niacin on schizophrenic patients. And he opened the door for everyone else.
That's awesome.
And so a lot of people recognize now that, there is a nutritional component, there is a physical component to these problems. Others, of course, are very dismissive of that, partially because the nutritional component is like, it's self-care. It's like exercise. It's good for you, but no one can really make much money on you if you're just exercising or eating carefully. Or even a cleaner environment, for example. It's great for us, but it's not a big money maker for the professions. And so I hate to be unkind, but to a large extent, they don't promote a cleaner environment or exercise or a more careful diet because it's self-care.
And back in the day, some of the treatment facilities were more like hospital-like in their setting, and really kind of sterile, and they didn't do a whole lot of physical activity things or, experiential, go out and do, some fun thing with nature. But the more holistic centers, as we're learning more and more about what's really good, in my opinion, the holistic approach is becoming more your better choice. And that's where you're embracing more of like getting out in nature and connecting and doing some of these things that you, like you said, I mean, it doesn't cost a lot, but it's like great to do it with professional supportive team that's with you, because it's easy to get sidetracked if you're not, you know, realigned. And if you haven't had the psychic change yet, you're gonna, like, oh, and something triggers you off, and away you go. So it's wonderful to have a supportive team in this that can cost, but being with nature and everything and learning how to do that, and just to connect like that is super healthy.
And so you think, I'm asking, do you, like groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, where you can go to a meeting every day, correct?
Yes.
And in general, that's good, isn't it?
It's great.
It's good.
It's great.
Because you're with your peers who kind of have your number. Is that it? They have your number, and they've been through what you've been through, largely. And so you think, okay, I'm comfortable here because they get me. Is that it?
For me, it's an opportunity to be of service every time I go. So, and that feels good. So that's pretty much my intention when I go is, how can I be of service? How can I help? How can my experience help another? So that's kind of the way it works, and there's some, in the beginning, it was like, what can I learn here so that I, maybe one day can be useful. I didn't know that I would get to, but when I do, I can tell you it feels really good. And I see that happen for a lot of people around me. I see the miracles happen around me, and the fellowship, yes, it's incredibly rewarding. Again, a holistic mind, body, soul. It's all just getting your body to a place that's really good, and doing things that make you grow and learn. There's every adversity that I experienced today is an opportunity to grow and learn.
Right. For those of you just tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, we're speaking with Michele Garcia, president of Active Recovery Solutions, who Michele practices here in the Los Angeles area. So when people go to meetings, they get that support, and you think people are looking for that support, aren't they? That's one reason why they fall into addiction. They're just lonely.
Very well. Addiction can definitely places people in a very desperate, very lonely, dark place. That generally is the outcome of an alcoholic addict.
And your group, your organization, really gives people really one-on-one counseling rather than going to an AA meeting, which is good, but maybe for a lot of people just not enough.
I mean, for me, it's not even just that it's not enough. Like, no matter how far down the scale you've gone, it's always wonderful. Like, I am enjoying the therapy that I'm getting from the schooling that I'm going to, because it's experiential.
Where are you going to school for this degree?
University of Santa Monica in Santa Monica. Yeah, it's rated the #1 school in the world for spiritual psychology.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I absolutely found it to be the biggest gift I've given myself this last year and this year, for sure.
Exposure to new ideas.
It just new modalities of therapy that help clear, away issues, and and different things work for different people, and it's nice to intuitively know and to just help others, embrace that, and to create a loving, safe space for people to practice finding their own truth, and it's not that hard. It's just to be able to trust someone and to allow yourself to unfold, So yes, I think that no matter how far down the scale we go, there's always more. There's always more to discover about ourselves, and so we can be more useful. It's wonderful. It's a beautiful journey.
Michele Garcia of Active Recovery Solutions. It's been a pleasure having you as a guest. How can we contact you?
Well, I have a website, and it is activerecoverysolutions.com. I have a page on Facebook. My personal page is Michele Garcia. I also have a fan page for Active Recovery Solutions, and I'm doing a February Valentine's Talent Showcase.
Where?
At Topanga Canyon Froggies.
Where is that exactly in Topanga Canyon?
It's a really cool seafood fish restaurant with a great stage for entertainers of all kinds. I have spoken word, poetry, musicians, comedy. Dinah Sher, the blind jazz singer, she was there. She performed last show. It was phenomenal. The drummer from Crow was there. It's just, and just people who are like 4 months sober that are playing the blues like from their soul level. It's just so gorgeous. Stevie Mack was there doing comedy. It's just a lot of fun. So, if you want to embrace that, just look me up on Facebook and I'll sign you up. It's free, and I give away awards and certificates, and we give away prizes, and it's just good fun and good exposure, and it's a good opportunity to build your network. Even if you're not, somebody who wants to express creatively, just being in the element of it, I think it's really healing, and it's really good. So there's that, and my website will guide you to my phone number where you can reach me anytime, and I have an amazing team of people who can be there to support you, whoever you are out there. If you feel like, you're in a space where you want to embrace getting help, it's, the new year. And you can start your new year with a new beginning, and you can really embrace a new life where you live free and happy, and you don't have to suffer anymore. You really don't. You can have fun. And that's how you can reach me.
That sounds very good. We've been speaking with Michele Garcia, Active Recovery Solutions. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live. We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hi, this is James Kinney from Kinney Group Creative, inviting you to join us every Thursday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for our all-new show, What Catches Fire. We're going to be discussing the love, life, and politics of the American brand. So don't forget to tune in to latalklive.com every Thursday from 2 to 3 p.m. exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
People, it's Jennifer Tapier from StarCam. You guys might know me from the red carpet, catching up with all the stars, but guess what? We're bringing the red carpet to the radio right out here on LA Talk Live. I'm going live Thursday nights at 6 p.m. We got hot topics, celebrities, and much more. We were featured on Chloe Lamar on E!, Howard Stern, T.I.'s Family Hustle. You know how we do. So check it out on Thursday nights, 6 p.m. All things Hollywood, everything celebrity. StarCam Radio?
StarCam Radio? StarCam Radio!
Oh yeah, follow us on Twitter at StarCam Radio.
Hi, this is Dawn Christie inviting you to join me every Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dawn Christie Show. Join me as I discuss love, spiritual readings, your purpose, why am I born, what am I here to do. So don't forget to tune in The Dawn Christie Show at 1 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV, reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi everyone, Chef Richard Petty here to tell you about LA Talk Live's new cookie show, Let's Do Lunch, with me, your host, Chef Richard Petty. Let's Do Lunch launches Saturday, January 19th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Well, tune in to Let's Do Lunch with me, Chef Richard Petty, Saturdays, 10 to 11 a.m., exclusively on LA Talk Live. We're more than just talk.
Hi, this is Nicordelai Corte, inviting you to join me Sundays at 10 a.m. right here on LA Talk Live for our all-new show, People Are Talking. Join us as we offer you a weekly dose of fresh perspectives with in-studio guests, hot topics in the world of politics and pop culture, and the voices of everyday people impacted by the political issues coming to a ballot box near you. So don't forget to tune in to People Are Talking exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, watch us on ustream.tv, or even catch us under the Radio Flags app under ILATK. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Superhuman strength relative to our current capabilities. I am in perfect health and I feel wonderful. My funny bone is ridiculous. My organs are tight as a drum, illuminating high-frequency, glistening energy in order, flowing, glowing, clear, and wonderfully gelling together as energy flows through. They are neighbors that get along very well. Any broken bridges are reconstructed. Bones are stronger, lighter than any man-made synthetic metal. My nervous system and we are here to heal and be healed. We are plugged into an inexhaustible source of strength and inspiration. Perfect Love by Alan Wingate, Topanga neighbor. Night stars and evening rain, and you inside my mind again. Drops of leaf, splashed moonlight falling, sounds whose night calls love enthralling. Come and lie beside me, lovely, all a bastard. Clean, type, something, etc. I love helping people out around me. I feed my relations as we are one. I feed myself. I only inwardly critique myself, my thoughts, reload them back into my intentions, reload, repeat, and so on. All externals result from my internal pilot. I draw out the happiness in others daily. Peace, stability. We are cellularly.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live. I'm your host, Joshua Lane, and our guest has been with us before, Tommy Teeple, a musician who works with organic agriculture here in the Los Angeles area. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. What
Thank
a great
you.
way to start the new year here.
It's a very good way to start the new year. That's
great.
Right. And Linda Vaccaro, you are a musician also?
I'm a musician and a health freak.
A health freak. Well, that's very good. Good. That show kind of blends the two things very, very nicely. Sure. And so Tommy and Linda will be performing for us some songs later in the show. And also Tom works with organic agriculture. So you help people grow in their community. Is that correct?
That's one of the things I do, yep. And today we're mostly going to be talking about my book, Quantum Hitchhiker.
Yes.
Which is basically the root to everything that I do.
And this is a copy of your book.
That's a copy right there.
Which is, of course, very nicely designed with the stick. It's hard to possibly mail that way, but it certainly looks very good, and it does get the point across.
I did that just for fun on the first 100 copies, and I actually sold out hard copies, physical copies, so I asked LV if she had a copy, and she brought that one. I forgot that I actually gave her one with the stick on there, book on the stick, so it's fun.
Well, it certainly is fun, and I guess it does also reflect your worldview.
Yes. The book's mainly about programming and self-programming. So I encourage the reader over and over to basically write their own script and to brainwash themselves exactly the way it's happening anyway, but just to change the tape, custom to yourself. And basically when you realize how programmed we are just by laying in front of, let's say, a TV, even sleeping while watching a football game, basically that information is all coming into you subliminally. Right. And so you can do the same thing. You can write your own programs, and even this radio show, people are hearing this, and it's going into their minds, going into their bodies, and then eventually it comes out in some shape or form or another. And we can make that connection that everything's really affecting us, what we're letting into our atmospheres and our environments. We're just absorbing that all the time, and then it comes out in some shape or form, in a positive or negative way, or somewhere in between.
And when did you suddenly realize, oh, I don't have to do that. My mother and father are doing that. I'm not doing that anymore. When did you realize you can, I'll use the term, write your own script, which, by the way, is a concept that not everyone knows. You have to, that's a learned concept.
Right. I would say that it incrementally happened over a period of probably like 5 or 6 years. And I was in Switzerland for 3 years in my mid-20s. And when I was in Switzerland, I didn't have a TV. And when I did see the TV, I couldn't understand. It was in German.
Right.
So when I was there, I did a lot of like outdoor living too, a lot of hiking, a lot of camping, and a lot of biking, a lot of walking, and just a slower paced lifestyle. And I did not have a TV and any mainstream media. And when I came back to Philadelphia, I have realized that I was really dependent upon the mainstream media for just a huge chunk of my life. And then that was missing. And I just realized that what everyone was basically talking about all the time was mainstream topics. And then, so I realized after 3 years not having mainstream media in my life that I was kind of out of the loop in that sense. And then I started reading a lot too. One of my favorite pastimes is sitting in the tub and reading a lot. And there were certain books I would gravitate to. One of them was Edible Landscaping. I read that book 3 times. And then about a year after I read that book 3 times, I started my business called Edible Landscapes. And so that was just an indication of what I'm letting into my mind manifested into my life. And then I would read plenty of other books too. And it seemed like a common theme between the books was you are creating your own reality. So some of the spiritual books, the foundation of it was, you know, this is your trip and you're the one who's running the show. You're the director of your own ship. And I think that the mainstream media basically does the opposite of that. They don't communicate that you're the director of your own ship. And
I think you're right. I think they do not really.
Right, or the captain of your own ship.
Right.
So I encourage the reader over and over to basically write their own script and realize that they are the captain and everything that's happening, all the successes and all the failures and all the harmonious times in your life and all the discordant times in your life, it's mostly up to you what you attract. And so in my own life, I find that, and with most people too, I think that we all want to take the gratitude or the pat on the back when we do something really great. Let's say you write a great song, or let's just say if you're an athlete and you hit a hole in one, you know, that's a great thing. But you don't really want to, I think we're just kind of programmed to not take responsibility when we don't hit a hole in one and roll over the course. You know, we're getting...
Well, it's painful to fail, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
Painful, yeah.
But I think when you realize that you're the creator of that, then it's just a big, giant, I think, difference between those two mindsets and perceptions.
You mean you can let it go? You can let it go if someone says, "Gee, Tom, why aren't you an MD right now?" And you say, "Well, I didn't want to be an MD," and you don't feel bad about it. Was what if you're 18 or 19 and think, "Oh God, I'm not an MD," you might feel bad. Is that it?
Something along those lines, yeah, I would say for sure. And I say even with creativity, let's just say if I made this microphone, if I was one of the people who engineered this entire thing, if something went wrong with it, I'd be less apt to complain about it, and I'd be trying to figure out how I can fix it and create a better solution for it. And then if I didn't create it, I might be just kind of whining about it.
Right.
So I think that the more we're involved with creation, and that also involves how we mold our realities, and each individual reality makes up a collective whole, makes up society too. So I know that that's part of the reason why I do Edible Landscapes, to make a better, fresher, green air world. And so when I work in that way and from that perception, then my little bit helps to mold society in a collective way, and then I'm less apt to complain about society.
Sure, that makes perfect sense to me. But once again, it's something that as a young man I probably didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
Now, as an older man, I think, okay, I've learned that at a stage, and I completely agree with your ideas, and try to incorporate them as much as possible, and find that when I do try these ideas, I feel better about myself.
Yeah.
I feel less of a victim. I think to myself, no, I want to do this. I'm doing this. And then you do this, and you're happy doing it, and you think, that's what I want to do. Other people think, oh, you don't want to do that. No, I want to do that. I'm doing it. And I have found that I am much less passive as an older man than as a much younger man. I'm just much less passive, and it's better.
Yeah.
It's better, really.
Yeah. And then I think the question is, how do we program ourselves?
Right.
And so what I had done was I was living in Ottawa, California.
Where?
And I was working in a health food store.
Where were you working?
Ottawa, California, which is up in the mountains, not far from Hemet, and I'm trying to think what else is over there. but it's up to 10.
Okay.
Go out to 10.
All right.
It's up in the mountains, a little artistic community up there. And I stayed up there for about 8 months. I was working in a health food store. And this woman came up and introduced me to this intenders group. And in this group, we would go and state our intentions. And that's where I started writing what I call my custom prayer program. And I started writing it maybe like a movie script, as if everything's happening right now.
Mhm.
So it's all sectioned out into I think it's 14 different tracks. And it started out with just literature, writing a whole page. And then I had taken these pages and I had recited them and recorded them and had put music behind them. And basically, like a program, I listened to them. And they're kind of like songs on a radio. I just play them. I have the program on a CD, and also I have it on the internet so I can access it from wherever I'm at.
Mhm.
And I basically brainwash myself with it. And it's basically my choices. So I do watch some TV, but I don't have TV. And so, if a TV's on, I'm open to watching something on, or
Sure,
a movie.
sure,
It's not
sure.
so I'm still. Let's just say I'm not against anything, and I'm for basically everybody writing their own script.
And so for the 3 years when you were in Switzerland, and you didn't watch Love Boat for 3 seasons, you don't feel deprived, really?
Nah, not at
No.
all.
Mhm.
Not at all. And I feel like it took a little while to finally get comfortable with my own program. There's kind of you're walking across this bridge and everybody's kind of just hitting you with all kind of propaganda. And
Right,
it might be I
right.
remember I worked
That's
for an
right.
outfit where everybody talked about Melrose and football, and I didn't watch either one of those two. And I ended up getting fired from that job. And I think it was because I didn't watch Melrose and I didn't know what was going on with professional football. And
Well, that could very well be.
Yeah,
That could very well be, yeah.
And
You
we
weren't
just
in the in crowd.
That's right.
Right. So, and it's just interesting over time too that I have listened to these custom prayer programs. And for example, I had the best year ever with my edible landscapes. And if you were to listen to the custom prayer program, it's called the Landscaping Lounge. That I listened to, but it's all about the jobs going really smooth.
That'd be a good name for a radio show, wouldn't it? Landscaping Lounge?
Yeah, I think
There
so.
you go.
Would really. Very good.
And so it's just interesting. And also, I had manifested a band, and I think that also I would say that it was co-manifested with the people in the band. I think we were all dreaming this thing up, and then we came together and we had so many fun times. And we just recently had a great time too. About 3 weeks ago, Cafe Mimosa. And so basically, I like to communicate to the listeners and the viewers out there that I myself had started from zero, from scratch with, let's say, for example, no one's in a band does not exist, and something I want to do is play in a band and have a lot of fun and sing and play like kids and write
Sure.
songs.
Sure.
And so in order to do that, I wrote a little script that recites it in a way as if it's happening right now. And I listened to that over and over. And then eventually I see the players start coming into my life. And they discuss this in the movie The Secret, where people are trying to change their careers and stuff like that. And I think in a detailed kind of way, what we need to do is actually write that script. And it took me about 2 or 3 years to get it to the point where it's at right now. And I think it's probably 7 years old, but it's just like a piece of artwork. You're always deleting things and then adding things
Sure,
back in,
definitely,
and
right.
mind sculpting.
Right.
And if you don't want war in your life, well, take the word war out and just pray for peace, or just make up a peaceful script. And it's kind of a no-brainer, but it's not, because we're getting bombarded consistently
Sure.
through, in this dimension, as we know. And I think that's the big test. It's I think that's part of the reason why or maybe I had chosen to be here, is this incredible challenge to live in a society where we're getting bombarded with a lot of negativism and war and whatever it may be, and alcoholism or.
Sure.
And then at the same time, though, I think we have the ability to write our own script, and that's kind of like the portal out of this dimension, and to create your own dimension and leave that dimension alone. It's kind of like 12th grade. We don't need to change 12th grade. We just need to basically move on and know I was once there.
Right.
And there was a point in my life where I was kind of I really believed in the mainstream media. And then that gradually changed over to I'd rather have my own mainstream media.
Sure.
And I encourage everybody else just to basically bombard their minds exactly the way it's happening anyway, but with their own script. So you make up your own mainstream media. Now it's kind of like we have this elephant in the living room, which is not really anybody's own creation. It's
Right.
something
Right.
that I think that most people, if they looked at it, and we had a little interview with somebody who, let's say, is heavily into drugs or whatever it may be, and we sat down and talked to them for about 15 minutes, they would say, I really don't think that I want to be sitting in front of this television program like every day of the week. Maybe I'll watch it once a year instead.
Gotcha.
And then I'll flood my mind with something I really want in my life, which
Right.
is I want to be a professional ice skater, whatever it may be.
Well, exposure to these ideas. So you mentioned you worked in a health food store for 8 months. Now, obviously, you had an interest in that subject. Was that developed when you were in Switzerland? You suddenly found out about food and healing. Is that it?
Yeah, I think I went through a transition in my life where up to a certain point into my mid-20s, I had lived a certain lifestyle.
Mhm.
I had eaten a certain way.
Right.
And there were certain activities that I was into that there was so much change going on at once. I think it was just manifesting in parts of my body too. A lot of tension in my body. I think I craved to be massaged because I was so tense. And when I look back at that time too, and I look at the way I was relative to the way I am now, it just seemed natural that I would have tension in my body for a good year. And most
Sure.
people would, or they do, because it's like a huge kind of like, sometimes I feel it's like a denial that we're in, you know, prior to that I'm going to like reach these goals and be happy. And I think
Sure.
now it's like I'm happy with everything the way it happens, whatever way it comes. And that's something that's in my custom prayer program too, just to accept things within myself and the people around me and the environment I'm in. And so it's
Something
good.
you told me, Tommy, and it stuck with me. Being who you are is enough. Being me is enough. I didn't grow up thinking that. I didn't
Right.
think. I didn't.
I didn't either. It's a
You
new
know,
concept.
I'm not Madonna, so I'm not good enough. You know,
Oh,
I'm
right.
not good enough to be. You know, I'm not. I haven't become Madonna yet. Sort of like, being me is good enough. I'm good enough.
Yeah.
Just this.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's something that we need our kindergartens to teach us. You know.
That's true. But that really is an adult concept. I actually completely feel that's completely accurate.
Absolutely.
But it's something that I never bumped into as a young man. I never remember ever bumping into that.
So that's.
And I had lots of religious education, by the way,
Yeah.
through high school, and which I enjoyed and which I thought, oh, this is great. But we never did anything like that, which seems so important.
Yeah. So I would say, in reference to what you two are just discussing right here, it's kind of like the opposite of that would be to accept ourselves and to write like a half a page or a page saying, like, I accept myself for who I am. I love myself. It feels great to just look in the mirror and just love what I see and
Sure.
accept what I see. And basically, I think it's good to express what we feel like that we didn't have. And they're all programs. Like everything I just heard right there is kind of like a program.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And that's something we could repeat over and over too.
Yeah,
What we didn't get in our
reprogramming.
childhoods, and basically want to flood our minds with what we want in our lives and what we didn't have in our childhood. So it's really important to discuss the things that make us unhappy, and that's part of mind sculpting. And to basically identify exactly what it is that you don't want in your life. For example, what we were just saying there about measuring ourselves up against superstars or something like that and then feeling inadequate. So what we can do is just basically say, I am a superstar. And I think it's fun to write a whole page about that and put music behind it, or even make
I
a
have
film with it.
I have on my bathroom mirror in lipstick all the things I love about myself.
Oh,
There's
right.
a lot to love
Right.
here.
Sure.
You know, there's
Yeah.
lots. I got a lot. But
Yep.
Well, one thing I noticed as a mature man, as opposed to being a 21-year-old man, is ideas or issues that I thought were gender-based when I was, say, in my teens or 20s. I don't think they're gender issues. I think they're just personality issues. And that's something I didn't really know as a much younger guy. Or it's possible also that at my age, I'm in my 60s, the other men and women who I hang out with who are in their 60s, a lot of the gender issues have dropped away because we're not reproducing any longer. Not to be crude,
Sure.
we are older and the issues are different. And you realize, oh, they're personality issues. When you're in your teens or 20s or 30s, you know, you're having babies, you're having families. And the issues are not quite the same. But now as an older guy, I think to myself, oh no, I hang out with women my age, and I think to myself, oh no, these are not gender issues at all. Everyone has the same issues. And I didn't have that insight. Of course, when you're 20, how can you? Because being 60 or whatever is not like being 20. It's a little bit like it, but it's really not like it.
Yeah.
And that you can't know that when you're 20. You just can't possibly know
even
that.
if someone tells you, you won't hear it.
Right. No, you
gotta live it.
Can't, that's right. You have to live that, really.
Something I want to mention on the front cover of the book here is that you can see, well, the title of the book is Quantum Hitchhiker. And I'm hitchhiking kind of into my own world here, my own perception, and the way I'd like to see my my life. So on the billboards here, let me just lift this up here.
By the way, excuse me, for those of you just tuning in to Here's to Your Health, we're speaking with Tommy Teeple, author of The Quantum Hitchhiker, and Linda Vaccaro, a musician, part of Tommy's band, and they'll be performing for us a little later in the show. Tom, back to your book.
Yes. So basically, I have these billboards set up, and I asked the reader what they would like their billboards to say in their dream city. So here I have, let's say, Simplai City. That's the name of my kind of like dream city. And here's something here's called Whole at the Core, and that's kind of a dream relationship where we get along really well, a lot of harmony. And also, let's see what else is on here. The landscaping lounge is right here. You can't see it behind my thumb. And then right here it says green and sustainable. And so these are just my world. And now the reader has a blank page and blank billboards. They can fill that in. So it's just a little lesson to kind of stimulate people to fill in the way they like to see their world. And so that's just a little exercise. And then on the back of the book, we have something that looks like a flower. And the flower is upside down, growing out of kind of like an old paradigm. And this city here is kind of like breaking down and crumbling and turning into ruins. And then it's growing into, and this is actually a city upside down with little seeds falling out, which is kind of like the new paradigm. And basically a fresh air city, and you can just see here a lot of greenery, a lot of fresh air. And I do feel that we are heading in that direction, that technologies we're living in, we're heading towards like maybe the release of new technologies that are more harmonic with our bodies, and just living closer to nature and living locally and realizing that we can't continue to live the way we do unless we make changes. And again, this is my own program, so
I think a lot of us feel that indeed things are getting better and we're not Pollyannas. I mean, the air in Los Angeles in the 70s was really awful.
Yeah.
Now it still needs to be improved, but it's way better than it was. People are many more of us are much more aware of certain ideas that are just actually, as they turn out to be, very pragmatic ideas as far as living and wellness. And that's what I guess what your book really actually talks about.
Yeah, I was at a get-together for Christmas back in Philadelphia just recently, and I was explaining to someone what I do, like, and what my book's about.
Mm-hmm.
And just in general, I don't really watch TV. And then I program myself with something that I made up myself. And that's mainly what it is. Mm-hmm. So if you can like unplug, and even let's just say if you're studying in college and you don't really like it, and there's a lot of people that don't really like what they're studying, but they do it anyway.
Right.
But just to unplug from whatever it is, just as a test, and then to see how you feel too during like say a week or two without being bombarded with something that you know down at the core is not really you, and you want to maybe change that, then you have that downtime, that kind of like silent time, or nature is always good for that too, to get out there and basically get with yourself, and it helps to relax you. And then when that happens, then naturally your custom prayer program starts coming through. That's what had happened to me. And like when I write songs, for example, I don't really try. They just come through because I'm in this environment that's just kind of like silent and still, and we don't have to try and be creative. And the more you try, the less creative you're going to be.
Isn't there the famous story about Keith Richards writing Satisfaction? He was in the middle of a sleep. He woke up. He turned his record player on. I'm sorry, the tape recorder on. He played the chords of Satisfaction and the lyrics. Fell asleep. Woke up. The tape was still spinning. He put it back on. He heard Satisfaction, and then he said 40 minutes of him snoring, and that went on to be the biggest hit the Rolling Stones had up to that date in 1965, and established them as international stars.
Wow, right.
But that's the famous story about Keith Richards. It might not be true, but he tells everyone that story.
Oh, okay.
You know? I read it recently in his biography, Life, which is fun, silly, but fun, for sure. Well, we're speaking with Tommy Teeple and Linda Vaccaro, and they're going to be performing for us very shortly. We're going to take a very short break. We'll be right back after these important messages.
Thank you for tuning in to LA Talk Live, reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. Stay tuned. Young Connection, your one-stop connection for all your graphic design and commercial printing needs. Young Connection is a full-service printing and media design company dedicated to providing the highest level of customer service and satisfaction. Young Connection provides swift response and rapid turnaround services for banners, brochures, business cards, letterheads, church bulletins, funeral programs, flyers, logo design, posters, and much, much more, all at an affordable price. Young Connection, the official printing company of LA Talk Live. Give them a call at 310-491-3336. That's 310-491-3336, or visit their website at www.youngconnection.com. That's www.youngconnection.com. Young Connection Printing and Media Services, proud sponsors of LA Talk Live, where it's more than just talk.
Oh, your skin looks great.
Thank you.
What's your secret?
Frankincense and myrrh oil by Ancient Essence.
Frankincense and myrrh oil by Ancient Essence?
Yes, it's a beauty secret used since the time of the Greeks and Romans. The spa in Malibu told me about frankincense and myrrh by Ancient Essence, and now my skin is lovely.
Well, your skin looks great.
Call Ancient Essence at 1-800-627-9813. Discover the secret of beautiful skin. Call 1-800-627-9813. Discover the secret. Frankincense and myrrh oil by Ancient Essence. Discover the secret of beautiful skin. Available at fine spas and beauty centers.
Journey Sisters is an organization that embodies and captivates women from all walks of life. Our membership includes 44 women that are constantly growing in the areas of personal development and community involvement. Monthly, we offer free leadership classes at McKay's Restaurant. Journey aims to inform women in the areas of heart disease and HIV and AIDS. Experience the journey now by logging into www.journeymosaicinc.com. Toll free 888-906-5519. Journey with no excuses.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live. This is our New Year's Day edition. And we have Tommy Teeple and Linda, who are going to sing a song that Tommy has written. And Tommy Teeple and Linda, take it away.
Happy, 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 happy. Happy I'm over myself. Glad I got over that story. I was playing in my head. My brother, he sent me a text, and it said, how's things in LA? And it said, spring has sprung. Spring has sprung. Happy I'm able to absorb. Happy to take in a little fun. Happy to stare out into the sun. And sure, I'll take a little piece of that cinnamon bun. Happy to walk a mile. Happy to simply smile. Happy to be myself. Happy. Happy to write a riff. Happy to receive a gift. And sure, I'll take a lift. Hey, which way you going? Happy? You're going to Happy here?
I'm going to Happy, the happy place.
Happy. Now, everyone's got a story. Some are good, some are bad. Some are happy, some are sad. Some are short, some are long. Some are right, some are wrong, yeah. And we want to hear your stories. All those little stories. You know they'll add up to that big life story. And we want to listen. Listen.
Be myself.
To be myself, to be ourselves, to be myself, to be ourselves, yeah.
Good song. Tommy Teeple, Linda Vaccaro. Tommy Teeple, Linda Vaccaro, thank you for being my guests on Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live. Happy New Year 2013.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
All right.
All righty.
For more information about the guests and sponsors of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, please call us at 818-707-0005.